This happened to me about a week ago, and my blood still runs cold whenever I think about it. Keep in mind, this isn't like any of the super scary stories on here, but it scared me, and it was definitely out of the ordinary. My brother wanted to get a drink from a place we both loved to go to. It was going to close soon, and he had work to do, so I went by myself. It wasn't very late, but it was already dark, and my parents had drummed into me since birth about the dangers of walking alone at night. I was kind of nervous that day, even though I've done this many times before. So I went and got both drinks for us, and for some reason I forgot to get a bag. And now, I was walking along with both of my hands full. Bad idea. As I was walking toward the street where my house was, I suddenly became aware of two men who were very near me. In fact, they were a little too close for comfort. One was in front of me, wearing a maroon pullover, and the other was behind me, wearing a gray zipped-up hoodie with the hood pulled up. Now, I only turned around for a flash of a second, so I couldn't describe his face to you. I was weirded out because I was walking between them and I was beginning to feel like they were trying to hurt me. And just as I was telling myself that I was clearly overreacting, I came across a garage that was down an alleyway and a black Subaru was pulling out. I had time, so I crossed before they reached me, and the person inside clearly wasn't counting on me doing that, so they swung around and parallel parked next to me, at most 2 feet away. So now I was between 3 men and a wall. When I saw the door open, that was it for me. I bolted and I didn't stop running until I reached my house. So, yeah. Black Subaru driver, gray hoodie and maroon pullover. Let's not meet. When I was about 8 years old, my family was attending my little brother's soccer game. Me being a little bored ADHD youth, I ran off to play in a nearby park within view of where the parents were standing. The view of some of the park was slightly obscured by a few trees, which is an important tidbit for later. I wasn't the only kid at the park, and with some organization from one big kid, we all became involved in a very exciting game of tag. Now, as the game dissipated, the big kid approached me, and if my memory's correct, he was around 14 years old. He introduced a game of hide and seek with me, and after it, he asked me if I wanted to see his secret hiding spot. Now, I had been very educated by my parents on how to avoid sketchy situations and avoid abductions, and this otherwise would have set off red flags for me, except for the fact that he was a teenager, so in my little head he was just another kid. He praised it as a secret hiding spot where we could spy on other people but nobody could see us, and he claimed he had stashed candy there that he wanted to share with me. Once we pressed further into the woods, I was grabbed from behind a tree by an older man whose face was obscured from me. Within a moment of him beginning to drag me, I was pushed to the ground when the sounds of loud yelling began to draw closer to us. The police arrived within a minute of my parents alerting me missing and ended up capturing the 14-year-old boy who was covered in needle marks and finding a nearby shaded van filled with illicit drugs. I believe they found that man shortly after. Now, earlier when I had started playing hide-and-go-seek on the outskirts of the trees surrounding the park, my parents had noticed ahead of time that I wasn't visible from the park anymore. After a few minutes of calling my name, they decided to call the police who arrived just in time, and I hate to imagine what could have happened if my mom hadn't been so attentive. So, textbook child abduction guy, let's not meet again. This happened to me when I was 16 years old and I was visiting my friends down the road. It was maybe a 3 to 5 minute walk from my apartment, if I remember correctly. Now, at around 9 p.m. I started walking home. Being a female, I feel I have to be more alert to things around me when walking at night. Now, as I'm thinking about this, I notice a man on the other side of the road walking in the same direction as me. I paid no attention to it because that's not unusual. What was unusual was that he crossed the road and was now walking behind me, which made me very uncomfortable, and I even had a slight wave of anxiety wash over me. I start walking a little faster, and that's when I hear the sound of his legs rubbing together on his windbreaker pants, and the sound was getting faster. No matter how many times I try to walk a little faster than him, he always matches my pace. When I got to the end of the road where I have to turn, I run a little when I'm out of his line of sight, and at this point I'm not even a minute away from my apartment. I finally get there, rush inside the doors, and spam the buzzer to get let in. I look out the window of the door and the man is stopped, on the sidewalk, 3 cars from me. He's just looking at me as I'm panicking frantically, but then he starts walking towards me. I finally get buzzed in and I run inside, slamming the locked door behind me just as he reaches it, and I ran as fast as I could up those 3 flights of stairs. I was absolutely terrified, and the moment spent between the doors waiting to get buzzed in felt like a lifetime. And the image of him walking towards me at the door is one that I'll never forget. It truly was something straight out of a horror movie. So, to the man that followed me home, let's not meet.